Great. Well, firstly, kia ora, good morning everybody, and thank you for coming out here. It's fantastic to be here. Can I say thank you to you, Rob, and to all the Channel Infrastructure team. It's been awesome to meet the team of experts behind us here who've all played a role in making this project come to life in the way that you have. But more importantly, can I also say thank you for your leadership and thank you for the way that you are transitioning what was the refinery site into a terminal site that's future-proofing New Zealand's energy need and security. Look, it's great to be here with Ministers Nicola, Willis and Shane Jones and Lindis and all the team from Z Energy as well, and the rest of the Channel Infrastructure team, and everyone who's actually worked incredibly hard around the clock to get us to this point. Today we do mark a really important and a practical milestone for New Zealand's fuel security with the completion of 2 refurbished diesel storage tanks here at Marsden Point, which is now holding our first shipment of those 90 million litres of Dextra diesel procured by our government through our agreement with Z Energy and Lindis. Diesel matters to New Zealanders, as you all know, because it's what keeps our country moving. It powers our freight, our farming, our construction, our emergency services, and many of the essential services that Kiwis rely on each and every day. While the higher fuel prices have been tough to navigate and to deal with for many New Zealanders, having a shortage of fuel, frankly, would have been an even tougher consequence for households, for businesses and for Kiwis. That is why shoring up fuel supply was very much in our three minds as we went through this crisis, and particularly diesel, which has been a top priority for our government. When tensions in the Middle East escalated, we recognised the need to act quickly and to make sure that New Zealand had a strong diesel buffer and a secure place to store it. A little over 3 months ago, our government signed off up to $22 million from the Regional Infrastructure Fund to enable Channel Infrastructure to refurbish these diesel storage tanks to increase New Zealand's fuel storage capacity and thereby bolster our fuel security. Channel Infrastructure said it would have the tanks ready in 2 months, and it absolutely delivered. And Rob, I remember sitting with you in my office and we talked about on time in full and how important that would be, and your team, exactly as you've described it, have come together, worked together with contractors in the region where there's world-class expertise and capability to deliver the project that we see here in front of us. That is a tremendous achievement, and I just do want to genuinely acknowledge all the team at Channel, but also all the partners that you've worked with. Just talking to some of the team, hearing about how much water blasting and cleaning was needed inside these tanks, the 775 metres of piping that was needed, that was put together, and the way that it was done was just incredible. Incredible engineers, incredible contractors, incredible teams, operational teams, officials, and everyone involved across Channel Infrastructure and government agencies. I just do want to acknowledge you, Lindis, and all the team at Z Energy for working alongside the government to help strengthen New Zealand's fuel security. Right from the onset, our mantra was that we want to work with our fuel importers, and Z in particular, rather than actually do things to the industry. We want to work with industry, not do it to them, was one of the big learnings coming out of COVID, and we were determined to do that. And by doing so, we were able to get some very practical solutions in place and get our supply in place. To Shane and to Nicola, can I say thank you for your leadership, both of you, for those early starts and those endless meetings that we had, and the way that you have driven our government through this process and actually built great relationship and rapport with our importers and Z Energy as well. Securing this additional 90 million litres of diesel makes New Zealand a lot more resilient, and in a world that's increasingly volatile and uncertain and chaotic at times, this is actually really important that we have this facility and this asset here in New Zealand. While global tensions rise and fall, the key is that New Zealand must be prepared and consistently and constantly ready for any crisis that may come our way. It's all about making our country more resilient, more secure, so in a volatile and uncertain world. Again, can I just say a big thank you to everybody involved. Thank you so much for your leadership. Thank you, team, for all the roles that you've played in the group and in the team bringing it to life. You should be very proud. We have world-class people working on an asset that actually sets New Zealand up for a great future. And with that, I'll pass over to Shane to say a few remarks.
Yeah, greetings everyone. Acknowledge the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance. This was definitely a strategic and important decision taken by our Cabinet. The Prime Minister, once we took the proposal to him, very quickly identified there was to be no slippage. So I want to acknowledge the team from Channel, but a big shout out to the men and women who came up from Taranaki.
Yeah.
A big shout out to the whāngarei workforce here in Taitokero, but also a reminder that we do have practical skills of industry. Often they get overlooked, but this is an industrial site, and I'm sure I speak for both the Minister of Finance and I, that when you live in a policy bubble, you tend to overlook the apprenticeship skills, and I think that's a timely reminder that we can do more of it.
Yeah.
This is Godzilla. It's got a lot of diesel in it. It's a reminder that we do need a buffer, we do need resilience, and please, media, respect the fact that practical people have delivered on a policy outcome for the government, and we've put our money where our mouth is, and we hope to do a lot more of it. Look around at these buns, media. This is more than adequate to cope with this mahi, and we need to always ensure that in New Zealand we don't overspec things, but we do things based on a risk-based approach, not overspecking, not compromising the engineering abilities we have to do things that are good enough, not things that would be nice to look at on a bit of paper but we cannot afford as a nation. So kia kaha to the workforce, kia kaha channel. You've delivered, and I'm proud to have played a small part along with the Cabinet in delivering these outcomes.
Well done.
Can I just echo the Prime Minister and Shane Jones in saying that when we first embarked on this project, it's hard to remember now with diesel and fuel prices having come down so much, but those prices had been on the climb. We were watching nervously international markets and wondering whether New Zealand would have enough diesel to keep our economy moving. Channel and Z came together with the government and said we can make a solution happen, and we got it done. We made this happen fast. So like the Prime Minister and Shane, I want to acknowledge the more than 90 people who were involved in this piece of construction, the multiple vendors and contractors who each brought their skills to the task. And what this facility has delivered us is more security. And that security is essential, because what we saw in New Zealand during the fuel crisis was that it wasn't just a knock to people's wallets, it was a knock to confidence. And by showing that we're capable of this and that we can have a bigger buffer, that builds our confidence. I'm really pleased to see that now fuel prices have come down significantly and we're not having the kind of concern that we previously had about disruption to supply. But what we've all learned as a country is that things can change very quickly. And what we have learned over these past few months is how important having stockholding in the country is and how much confidence that gives the economy. So awesome to have this facility. We have use of it till the end of December, and now we have some bigger tanks that are ready to take fuel into the future. So with that, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
I'll say some words quickly. First, I'll talk to the other big milestone here, which is the new jet storage facility, Z's Jets facility here at Channel Infrastructure. It's a meaningful increase in jet storage, and to put it in perspective, that 30 million litres is equivalent to 30,000 flights between Auckland and Wellington. And I don't want to also step past the work that Channel have done in that work. So in terms of the professional way they've gone about it, delivering it on time and on budget, Rob, thank you for that. That just proves that at Channel Infrastructure we've got a good partner. And I know that when we think of the big challenges in the energy sector, whether it is resilience, security or transition, no one company, organisation or government can do it on their own. So it is about partnership. And to that point, I do want to acknowledge Minister Jones and Minister Willis for their leadership during the fuel crisis. My experience of them were extremely straight up, calm and clear, and I appreciated that. I also want to acknowledge finally, once again, Channel Infrastructure for the extraordinary progress they've made in getting this diesel storage here on time. And lastly, I want to acknowledge my team. The last 100 days have been some of the most challenging, difficult, uncertain periods in any of our career. And that got in the way of lots of things, including their personal lives. But the skill and the work and the care they show to keep New Zealand moving, I'm incredibly proud of you. So thank you very much. Kia kaha.
Good on you. Well done.
Okay. Hey, well, listen, everybody. Be no doubt in this great country of ours, we can do big things, and this is a great illustration of that. And we look forward to doing many more in the years ahead. With that, let's get into some questions. If we can, let's focus on the announcement, and then I can take questions of the day at the end as well.
Prime Minister, what is the plan now for the strategic reserve? Will you hold on to it for a while, or could it go back into general use?
I'll let Nicola or Shane talk to that one.
So we have use of this fuel until December, and then after that obviously these tanks will still be available. So we as a government need to give consideration to that. At the moment all fuel companies in New Zealand are required to lift their stock holdings of fuel by 2028, and we will give consideration to whether perhaps we should bring that forward.
Yeah. As we've talked before, in energy, we're trying to make sure we have a strategic coal reserve behind Huntly, a strategic diesel reserve here, and obviously an LNG import facility to give us that resilience that we need to get energy security in place. But again, we are very open, to accelerating minimum stock holdings as well, and we'll have to have that conversation as a team and as a cabinet. Okay.
And have you given any more thought to the targeted support that you gave certain people within New Zealand? When could we get a decision on that?
Yep, I can maybe take some of Nicola, the other piece, but certainly, look, the way we've said that we want temporary, timely, targeted support. As you know, we put a $50 a week, essentially, in-work tax credit in place. That is temporary in the sense of we need to see 4 consecutive weeks of petrol being below $3. That's done and recorded by MB on a weighted regional average, and obviously we'll have numbers coming out tomorrow from, as our usual, weekly fuel update. But Nicola, do you want to talk to the other piece?
Yeah, so MB use data similar to what you see on Gas Spy, but they then weight that per region to get a national average. Last week the average price was $3.05. They'll update it tomorrow, and I'm told to expect it will have just gone under $3 as a national average. So that means the clock starts ticking. If we see 4 consecutive weeks of fuel being below that $3 price, then that would trigger us being able to lift the temporary supports. And I just want to emphasise what that would really mean, which is it would mean that we were back to really normal fuel pricing for New Zealand, which would be an extremely positive thing for every household in the country who's been having to fork out more for fuel. Having that relief at the pump is very positive. It's also positive for businesses who have had that bigger cost to absorb, and it's really positive for business confidence, which we've seen in recent surveys has gone up, and that's good news for job creation, for income growth, and the opportunities we want to see made in this economy. So I say happy days when the fuel price is coming down.
No, because we set the criteria of timely, targeted and temporary, and that's the lens by which we've been managing the financial situation. You know, our goal financially coming through it, and Nicola's done a great job leading us through it through the budget process as well, is to make sure that we minimise the impact on inflation and growth. And as you've seen in this economy, there's been huge momentum in Q1. There's actually been quite good growth through the period of the crisis, although we expect to take a hit. But we want to pop up with as few barnacles on the boat economically so that we can get back into accelerating growth. This economy's on an upswing. That's evidenced by the fact that we've had 7% growth in Kiwis coming home, 5% less Kiwis leaving each month. That's all very positive as we come out of this as cleanly as we can to accelerate growth and create more incomes and jobs for people.
But so if this diesel isn't kept beyond December, then how does it buffer us for any future changes in rules?
Yep. Question.
Well, exactly. So the deal that the government has done with Z Energy allows us the use of it until the end of December. We would have the option at that point of potentially extending that deal if we thought it was necessary. We could also look at some other options in terms of what our expectations are of fuel companies and the storage they have into the future. I think the Cabinet is pretty like-minded that as we look ahead, New Zealand needs more resilient storage. We've learned that during the recent crisis, and so that's what we want to build towards.
Yeah, like, are you leaning towards either which way? I mean, do you think it's worth holding on past December?
Well, we've got through till December to work out what the best arrangement is for New Zealanders. What we want is a deal that's good for you, the petrol user, that doesn't add too much to your costs, but is also good to you, the taxpayer, that it doesn't cost the government too much. So we'll look for the arrangement that strikes the best balance, but ultimately we want New Zealand to have more security that comes from more diesel storage.
But the fuel supply study also says that electrification of the fleet would help with our security.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Electrification will absolutely help, and it's happening. In some of the months during the fuel crisis, we saw the registration of electric vehicles triple, or I think even quadruple one month, as New Zealanders made their own choice to purchase an electric vehicle so that they could escape those higher prices. As a government, we've been investing in an electric vehicle charging network, partnering with the private sector to make sure there are more chargers available around the country, because we know one of the major reasons people don't purchase an electric vehicle is they have what's called range anxiety. They're worried that they won't be able to charge their vehicle readily enough. So we're putting in the infrastructure to support electrification, and we want to see it happening.
I just want to say on the energy strategy, though, there has been a real shift under this government. Our goal is not emissions and 100% renewables for the sake of being 100% renewable. That is a co-benefit or a byproduct of us actually pursuing more energy independence and more energy security. And so our strategy is and. And so when we've done fast track and RMA reforms, which Shane and Chris Bishop have done a great job on fast track legislation, you have seen more renewables built in 2 years than in the previous 8 years, and that is a good thing. In fact, the last quarter we ran at about 96% renewable electricity. The last quarter we had the lowest level of emissions, frankly, out of this whole country since we've been recording since 2010. But make no excuse, we are not going to have people lose their jobs because of bumper stickers, which was the previous administration, where you might want to end the fossil fuels, and everyone goes, oh, that's lovely. But at the end of the day, low and middle income people lost their jobs in 2024 because of an energy crisis created without thinking through the second and third order consequences. And so we will have a strategic coal reserve behind Huntly, which we've now put in place, almost 1 million tonnes. We are going to look at what we can do to build more resilience and more security and give ourselves more independence through storage and diesel and other things. And we will have an LNG import facility, and we will co-invest with other thermal firming industry in energy as well. Shane, did you have a few things to say?
Well, I think it's important to bear in mind, as the two main ministers in charge of the RIF fund, Nicola, Willis and I have signed off projects that accelerate geothermal energy.
Yes.
We are currently looking at a proposal for the major event that will take place at Canterbury University on hydrogen. We haven't fully worked through a hydrogen proposal, but we've both learnt, much to my surprise, that we have a massive resource called white hydrogen in New Zealand. It does need more scientific technology and investment. And in the early stages of August, a large event with international investors, domestic investors, scientists is taking place. There are already a host of people engaged, and I think it's a good idea that we further enhance the capacity of that hitherto marginalised resource to play a greater role with the private sector community working closer with our government. So I don't think it's fair to say just because we removed a subsidy on electric vehicles that somehow we're walking away from a more diverse energy mix. And you'll hear more about the hydrogen thing once Nicola and I have signed off various proposals.
On the topic of emissions, has there been any discussions within the two parties about that Paris climate target? Because I know that New Zealand First doesn't support continuing with that.
Well, I think it's fair to say the Cabinet has a position.
Yeah.
And as the Prime Minister has said on numerous occasions, what individual parties may or may not put on their manifestos does not detract from what the position of the Cabinet is. And given that I'm here today as a Minister with the Prime Minister, it's up to him to remind us as to what the position of the Cabinet is and what my leader may or may not campaign as a New Zealand First leader about is a different matter.
We're all here in our government capacity today, not our party capacities. But as Shane's right, as a cabinet we made a decision. Actually, there are 4 countries that are outside of Paris Agreement at the moment. We are not going to. We think coming out and withdrawing would be would be frankly send a message to our competitor countries and also large multinationals that they would actually punish our farmers, and we'd actually all be poorer as a result of that. Now, having said that, what we sure as hell ain't going to do is send billions of dollars offshore. We're going to keep the money in New Zealand. We are on track to delivering net zero 2050. We may even get there a few years early. That's the commitment that we are very much focused on. I know many countries, the G7, probably about 85% of the G20 are all struggling to meet their Paris commitments. I'm sure there'll be fuller conversations in due course about that. We'll give it a good go. We know it's tight. We know our 2035 is finally aligned with our domestic tracking commitment as well. But just I want to reassure people it makes sense for us to stay in because it will punish every New Zealander. But equally, we're not going to send billions of dollars offshore.
So have you communicated with other Pacific leaders, other Pacific Prime Ministers about this Chinese
Yeah, look, it's incredibly unwelcome and concerning what we've seen here, and we are in conversations with our counterparts across the region. And the reason's pretty simple, is this is an intercontinental ballistic missile test, the second that we've seen in recent years, having not had one in the region for 40 years from China. And of course we are living in a region that is proudly nuclear free and has a history here. But also we don't want to see increasing militarisation in our region, and essentially now this is the second year where we've seen activity from China. So everything they're doing is legal, let me reassure you around that. There's nothing illegal with what they're doing, but I'm telling you across the Pacific Islands and the Pacific family, we would say, hey listen, this is a region that is, this was fired into a nuclear free part of the Pacific, and secondarily, we don't want to see militarisation. We want to see an ocean of peace, as we say at the Pacific Island Forum. So very unwelcome, very concerning. We were informed, we weren't consulted. We were told literally a couple of hours before it actually took place by the Chinese. And I just think it's the wrong course. It militarises our region. It's inconsistent with Pacific values, and I think there's going to be quite a big pushback from the Pacific.
Do you believe the timing was deliberate, given that defence agreement between Australia and Fiji?
You'd have to ask the Chinese about that, but we are aware of naval activity through the region, and obviously we monitor those sorts of things pretty closely. We'd seen similar activity happen last year, if you remember, as well, coming through the Tasman as well. All I'm saying is that it looks like it's becoming more normalised behaviour. That's I think concerning, and I just think it's inconsistent with Pacific values. We have Pacific solutions to the challenges and opportunities that we have. We work really tightly as a Pacific Island Forum group of countries. We're in close contact. This is ramping up the militarisation. This is actually putting an ICBM into a nuclear-free Pacific. All of that is unacceptable and concerning.
Prime Minister,
how
would
would
you
you like the
consider
Pacific
calling in
Forum?
the ambassador to express your concerns? Is that something that you might?
We have expressed our concerns very directly and very clearly, as I've said consistently. Where we have differences, we raise them privately or publicly. I'm talking strongly about it right now to you. And we do so predictably and consistently, and we do that so we manage the differences. But all I'm saying is, it's completely legal what China is doing in terms of freedom of navigation and the international law, but essentially in the Pacific region, to see increasing militarisation and to see it into a nuclear-free area, unacceptable
And can I
and
just follow
concerning.
up on that deal between Australia and Fiji? How much consideration have we given to joining that? Have there been any conversations?
Look, I've spoken to Prime Minister Albanese and Prime Minister Rambuka in recent weeks about their agreement. It only happened yesterday. We need to let them solidify that agreement. We will make our own decision as a cabinet, but obviously discussions are ongoing and have been going on. But at this point, we'll have those conversations as a team.
That's quite different to what you said yesterday when you were asked about this exact same question before we knew that China had set that missile into the Pacific. You said that Cabinet had signalled an interest in joining. So has that changed?
Yes, no, that's what I mean by our discussions with the Australians and with the Fijians. The detail of we have to have negotiations to actually accede into that agreement. It's only been signed yesterday as a bilateral agreement between Australia and Fiji. We have said as a cabinet that we are very interested in exploring participation in that, but there's a wee way to go with discussions that would need to take place with both those countries.
And how would you like the Pacific Island Forum, which is meeting next month, to address this increasing threat in the region?
Well, I mean, again, there's no illegal activity happening here. This is actually, we uphold international law, we respect international law, so there's nothing.
But is it right?
No, but well, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that the legality of what's happening is entirely legal. But the reality is, in our region, in our part of the world, we reject increasing militarisation, and we reject certainly firing an ICBM into a nuclear-free Pacific that has a long history about nuclear testing and other things in this region, and so it's a sensitive issue for us. So we as a Pacific Island Forum will make those points pretty clearly, I suspect, as a group. We'll continue our conversations with our counterparts across the region as we gear up to the PIF.
And how will that change from previous conversations? This isn't the first time they've done this.
Well, it's the second time. As I said, it's becoming more normalised behaviour, and that's why we've got to keep calling it out. And we do that, as I said, publicly and privately.
Prime Minister, can I help your perspective on this talk of social media, the potential ban, and how there's reporting that National wants to to clamp down on VPNs. Are you able
Ye-
to clarify?
I can reject that outright. There's no plan to ban VPNs at all. I don't know where that reporting or where that story came from, but I can reassure you that's not the case. Obviously, the social media legislation is being drafted by PCO at the moment. It'll come to Cabinet. We'll have a conversation shortly about that, and we'll have more to say about it shortly as well.
So where might that have come from?
I don't know. I just saw the reporting you did, but I know that's not our position or policy at all.
Prime Minister,
Something that National would want to look at, maybe
No,
maybe
no,
down on
no.
Prime Minister, about 95,000 families have been getting that weekly fuel payment that we were talking
About 146,000 families, yes.
Supposedly it's about 96,000, although you were
I can
targeting
talk to this.
initially to get 150,000.
Sorry?
You were targeting
I can talk
initially.
Yes,
to
yes.
this RNZ, Mr. Makin.
Yep.
What's happening there? It seems a bit misleading.
Yeah, look, I think this is a misunderstanding from, are you from Radio New Zealand? No, it's a misunderstanding from Radio New Zealand. We were clear and advised by IRD that up to 143,000 families would be eligible for the full payment and another 14,000 or so for a partial payment. It's always been the case that how they claim that in-work tax credit is up to them. We know that, as you say, around 100,000 have already claimed it in real time. IRD expects that on average they will see several thousand more choose to claim it at the end of the year. That's always been a choice available to families who are eligible for the in-work tax credit. That's how it's operated in the past, and we were very clear when we increased the in-work tax credit to keep all of the eligibility rules the same as they have been previously, including that ability to claim it both for a small period of time, a partial period of time, or at the end of the tax year. So what that means is the numbers that have claimed it so far don't represent the total numbers. So the advice that we were given from IRD is that we should still expect more people will claim it in future.
Okay, guys, any last question, or I'll just wrap it up and get you out into
Can I just
some
get
dry weather?
one response from you, Nicola Willis, on supermarkets? So should supermarkets be charging suppliers? It's a question I've got on behalf of a colleague. I understand it's a new report that's come out.
Yeah, that's right. So the Commerce Commission are looking hard at that. These are billions of dollars of extra payments that suppliers are asked to make in order to supply the major two supermarket chains in New Zealand. And in the Commerce Commission's view, there are questions to be asked about whether that's always fair. And of course it matters to New Zealand shoppers because those extra charges can potentially get passed on to you and the price you pay for food. And it matters to suppliers because it may make it harder for them to supply their goods to a range of different supermarkets. So I'm pleased that the Commerce Commission has chosen to monitor that area carefully. Anything we can do to make food more affordable at the checkout is something we should do. We know we have limited competition in the New Zealand supermarket industry, so it's important that where these sorts of practices are emerging, that the Commerce Commission takes a careful look.
Okay, team, let's wrap it up there just because I want everyone to get dry and out of the weather. So let's do that now. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it, team.